Welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things weighing on our minds. My name is Dan Oliverio. I'm a chubby chaser, author, public speaker, and if I were a drink, I would be a gin Ricky.
And I think what's in a gin Ricky?
It's a lie.
But why?
It's a lie.
Oh, but why?
The gin Ricky is a lie.
I wouldn't be a gin Ricky? What?
How dare you?
Just because I feel sort of limey and ginny right now. I think that's
very nice.
I think that's just the point. And
do you
so that's
smell
my
of
drink
junipers?
I do.
I'm Trevor Keyson. I am a super chub, and if I were a drink, I would be a dirty chai.
Oh,
He is,
How fitting.
ladies and gentlemen, he is a dirty chai.
With some whipped cream and a little cookie.
my name is Michael. I am a chaser, and if I were a drink, I would be a homemade appletini using homemade apple liqueur,
Lovely.
which involves basically peeling a Granny Smith apple and soaking it.
You know,
It looks
that might
so
be the
good.
only way I'm going to enjoy an appletini. I got to try that.
It looked. I'll send you the recipe. It looked unbelievable, actually.
Oh, please do.
It looked really.
Okay, so
really
I'll
good.
drop off a small thermos on your front doorstep. You can just put my drink in there. And I've never really wanted an appletini so badly.
Yeah, well, because usually appletinis are, disgusting unless you like Hawaiian Punch.
Well, we're not debutantes. I mean, it's like, we'd appreciate
Wait,
it
you're
otherwise.
not?
Hi, my name is Don. I'm a big chubby guy living here in Hollywood. And if I were a drink, I would probably be a Romulan ale because I'm 50% fiction. I actually got to have a Romulan ale at the Star Trek Experience.
Well, of course you did.
Las Vegas back in the day.
And what is it? What does it consist of? What sort of awful?
I just
concoction
remember
did
they
make?
leaned really hard on the blue liquor. What is the blue liquor? The
Curacao.
blue curacao, because it had to be blue. It was
I had a
very
friend in
important.
college who used to call that Smurf solvent.
Smurf juice.
Oh.
Smurf juice. Yeah.
Oh.
No, I like Smurf solvent better.
It's because then you can picture the screams.
I know. I imagine like you're watching the cartoon and it's just too much, and you just get out the Smurf solvent and it just dissolves the cell.
Oh, no.
Oh man.
Isn't
God.
that the goo in Roger Rabbit?
Oh my God, you're right. So welcome back to the Big Fat Gay Podcast,
Yeah.
everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for coming to spend a little time with us. So we have a very full show ahead of us today.
Yes,
We do.
It's just crammed full. Just
I can already
It's a
feel how
great
full of it we are.
So
That's a-
round, so full, so fully packed.
A classic Trevor episode, and I'm gonna let you. I took a look at this first thing on our pop culture list.
Oh my
I'm
God.
just gonna let
So-
you talk about it. I don't think any of us could possibly do it justice.
So I discovered on TikTok, which
Jesus.
we're getting close to the deadline for before TikTok gets banned. So hop on there and check out Diva Porky, who I can only describe as if Miss Piggy were a drag queen,
Which seems
or maybe if a
redundant.
drag
No,
queen.
if Miss Piggy were a burlesque
it
dancer,
seems redundant. Yes.
Yeah.
Their Diva Porky basically looks like, a human-sized Miss Piggy with 6 breasts.
Is it 6 or 4?
Or is it 6 or 4? I thought maybe it's 4.
It's 4.
At least a double rack.
Yes.
However, there is one TikTok of her wearing the same outfit as the 6-breasted character in Return of the Jedi. So that kind of gives you a sense of what you're in for.
I am looking at it right now, and I honestly don't know how to react.
Yeah, it's fun, it's whimsical, it's dirty, it's squeaky clean, it's amazing.
It's
Do you call it dirty? I don't
That's
know.
why I said it's dirty and it's squeaky clean.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
I was going to say if Miss Piggy were a pole dancer, but maybe not.
yeah. Well,
You know what?
yes.
You're all right. It's Piggy. It's Miss Piggy as a pole dancer and a drag queen.
yes.
And
Two
she's
tastes
looking-
in one.
Good find, Trevor. I don't know how you found it, and I don't know why, but good find.
I don't know. There's something about this that isn't kosher.
Boo.
Wop, wop, wop.
Moving on.
But yeah,
Somebody said just
moving on. So this is kind of relevant to our episode, and Amazon has announced Halo, a fitness band and app that scans your body and your voice.
Yeah. It's sort of their take on a Fitbit, but it's supposed to be more inclusive of other ways of getting you to live a healthy life, etc.
It's not just fitness, it's well-being.
Right.
Yes,
But,
it's a lifestyle.
So their whole gimmick is that I think the biggest gimmick is that it's supposed to sort of listen to your voice and ascertain your emotional state based on how you're speaking.
I'm just imagine I'm yelling at you in a very calm tone. I've despised you,
Yeah.
little
When your
Halo.
oh my god, the parents arguing in front of you, but they're not raising their voices, and it just but it make they're angrier because of that.
It's more fear. Yeah, it's scarier. Yeah.
And it's scary. Yeah.
I was always more nervous when my parents weren't screaming at each other by a long shot.
Talking
but
through their teeth. It's fine. We're just going to go outside.
We'll talk about it when we get home.
The dicier part of this is that they also have a body scan feature where you put your phone down and turn in front of it.
Oh my god!
And it scans your body,
That's the
and
worst.
then it determines
Good. Now my phone gets to judge me. Awesome.
Well, what really gets me about it is they claim that the 3D assessment, because you take multiple pictures from multiple angles, they claim that the 3D assessment is actually a more accurate way to measure body fat than bioelectrical impedance or a lot of things, which is dubious. I think it's kind of hooked back into that. I can just look at someone and tell if they're healthy.
Yeah.
Sure. And again,
Well, they're also listening to you, so
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
if you sound fat,
So don't use your fat voice, Trevor.
so one of the major concerns raised about this is that they also have a slider that lets you sort of visualize your 3D model of yourself thinner. And people immediately, asked about the impact on this with people who have anorexia, for instance,
Or body dysmorphia. Yeah.
or other and so their thing was like, well, we won't let you slide it to a place of being too skinny or like unhealthily skinny,
But we will tell you that you're not skinny enough.
right, we'll tell you that you're not skinny enough. And people under people age 13 to 18 don't get access to the slider. They still get access to the scan and the telling you that you're too fat. They just can't use the slider.
Oh hell! At this point, just buy The Sims. I mean, just get over yourself.
Right.
I love The Sims.
I'm just looking at this screen grab they have where they call when it reads your emotional state and kind of it calls it a notable moment. And the three listed in this lady's pink phone, one is hopeful, the other is hesitant, and then another one's elated with a big like laughing emoji.
What do they call it when I bang my toe on the doorway like 3 a.m.?
I think
It's
it
just a
brings up
bunch
the
of like
laughing emoji.
asterisks and ampersands.
Where have we come to as a society that we need an app to tell us what we're feeling? Like, I don't know what I'm feeling, doctor. Oh, there's an app for that.
Although, could you imagine having that when your parents are arguing and shouting at each other without shouting through gritted teeth? I want the emoji for that. Just gritted teeth.
I just imagine like a wife being like, Alexa, can you tell Jonathan
That I don't need to hear his guff.
like, okay, Jonathan, I heard her, Alexa.
You tell her that.
So what's
poor
new in
Alexa.
the world of Lizzo?
Well, let's get the Lizzo watch music going.
Come on, we need a little more excitement than that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get the Lizzo watch music going.
Yay!
Lizzo Watch 2020.
2020, Lizzo watch 2020.
Still.
No, it's actually, I feel like Lizzo is kind of where a lot of us are right now. She shared a video on Instagram and TikTok, all the socials, expressing that she's like kind of down and also like that she doesn't really know what to do.
It's a really moving, very personal, straight look at the camera.
Yeah.
It really simple. I just loved it. I mean, it's hard to watch just because she's going through stuff, but that's the point. People are going through stuff.
And just being very open about it.
Yeah.
Which she kind of followed up yesterday with another, talking to the camera video of avoiding spreading negativity. And something that she said that really kind of stuck out to me, which I've been trying to be more mindful of, is not hate liking something. like when you see something upsetting or you see something hateful and you kind of share it to comment on it, like, can you believe this? But like not to do that and just to kind of accentuate the positive, really highlight uplifting things when you see it.
Yeah.
If you see something that you like or that makes you happy, like comment that. So something I have been doing to I don't know, kind of accentuate the positive. I am very excited about a game that is coming out tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
The Marvel Avengers game, which there's been an insane amount of like negative stuff posted online where it's like people either, I don't know why people are upset about it, but I like when I see, I'm getting a lot of targeted ads for it on Twitter, which is because I reject basically every ad on Twitter saying, I don't like this. But so I'm basically only getting ads for that. And I've been commenting like, I'm looking forward to it. Like the beta was really fun.
I want to see the new video game where there's a fat Avenger.
You would have to first introduce a fat Avenger.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Does Thor count?
It depends on if he's fat in the next Guardians movie.
Yeah. Speaking of fat people in space.
Fat in space.
Fat people in space.
So today we're talking about fatness in science fiction. Its use as metaphor and projective future on how fat people will exist in the future. Do we exist in the future?
Is there a future?
So the first thing that comes to mind with this is like, in general, it doesn't seem like fat people have a great future in most of these sci-fi pieces. I'd probably like the first stop I would take is Star Trek, right? Star Trek is probably the most iconic science fiction show around. It's the one most people are common with. And when you think about images of fatness in Star Trek, they're very slim, if you'll pardon the expression. There aren't a lot, and most of them tend to be fairly negative. So like you can point to, there are races representing everything, like all over the place, but there is one alien race in Star Trek that is iconically fat. And there's a race called the Pakled, introduced in Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh.
And the other identifying feature of that race is they're painfully stupid and slow.
Mm-hmm. Although, do you want to go on with that? Because I was about to mention a race that is literally porcine in old Trek.
Right.
The Tellarides.
Mm-hmm. But they are also not they are pig-like, but they're not iconically, they're not as necessarily fat.
I mean, they're 1960s fat, so.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're maybe 200 pounds.
And if you're going back to the old school, like the only iconically fat character from that time period I can think of is admittedly a famous and beloved character, Harry Mudd.
Oh, I also thought of the Tribble vendor. Is it Jones? Somebody Jones?
I'm not remembering.
The guy who sells the Tribbles to the Enterprise is very fat. Maybe the fattest character in old Trek.
Oh, I will have to add him to the canon.
And he's fat and jolly, and he sells Tribbles. And what could be bad about Tribbles?
So he's the toy smith, basically. There you have the iconic stereotype of fat people being dumb and slow, or givers of small joys, right? Like the candy maker. So this man gives you Tribbles. So like, oh, how nice. He's a lovely person who gives me things that make me happy.
Yeah, the important thing is that the fat characters are never shown to be effective or masculine or sexual or anything that... Yeah.
I think that changes up a little bit when the original cast gained weight. Because then in the movies you have Fat Scotty, you have Captain Kirk in a truss and a big girdle that ain't fooling anybody. So it's like...
I don't know if that counts, but
and there's been a lot of theorizing why that is in the Star Trek universe, because the theory is their technology has advanced so far, they understand food so much that you can basically choose what body type you have, right?
Unless they discovered in the future that you just can have the body you have and it's not a problem. Like no one's sporting that theory apparently.
No.
Shut up, doesn't happen. But so. Once Fat Scotty shows up, like all of a sudden he's portrayed humanly, he is an actual character because they can't devalue the character that they had before.
No, yeah.
And same thing with Kirk. And then now we're at the point where the next generation actors are starting to get a little bigger. So when Riker shows up, no, really, that's not a girdle. No, we swear. But basically fat people get to be humanized when the humans you recognize become fat.
I think that's very accurate. If you I mean, you see this with a lot of marginalized groups where if you know someone who's X, well, they're not really X. They're just Jane. They're just Peter. You know, they're not that fat gross person.
Right. When you delve into it, it's been very interesting. I've been looking. There's a lot of sources for fat characters that I've not read in literature. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, there's so much sci-fi at this point that God bless if you can keep up with, a 16th of it. But historically speaking, when I was doing a deep dive into Baron Harkonnen from Dune, which is he is unfortunately a really good example of the way fat has been used in sci-fi traditionally.
He is like the perfect storm of undesirable traits and character.
Yeah. But he everything about him is villain coding, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So in the movie, at least, you can tell he is fat and he is queer. Those are two things that
and if he's queer, he is also therefore, because what else is, no, also in the books, he's a pedophile.
Oh, is he?
The whole point. His whole sexual shtick is that he's so fat that he smothers these young boys underneath him while he rapes them. That is the deal in the book.
I did not know that, and I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, so that's what I mean by the perfect storm. Like how many more pieces of nonsense do you want to pile on this character?
Yeah,
they actually did something. So during, Dan and I have been watching a lot of franchises during the pandemic, but we watched Blade. And in the first Blade movie, there is the character Pearl, who is a male vampire who is so fat that basically they fill this room that they have kind of this hacker workstation in. And I was reading about kind of behind the scenes stuff, and originally they wanted to portray Pearl as gay and have kind of like a similar situation where it wasn't going to be like a actual child, but a very ambiguously young kind of twink across this very, very, very fat vampire, and to kind of accentuate how awful this character is.
Well, and I should also put in here, I think part of what they're trying to achieve, it's not, I mean, let's be generous and let's say, okay, they're not trying to communicate pedophilia as the ultimate extension of gay. Like, of course he's a pedophile. He's gay. Even if we say, okay, that's not the intent. I think what a lot of this trope runs on is the viewer's intuited disgust for a mismatched couple. So, what would, if you have this really fat, gross character who's bedridden, the most outrageous pairing would be a nubile, athletic boy who is at the flower of sexuality. That would be the most offensive juxtaposition for that. Just as you see, it's what the reality show, what was the one with the fat women and this?
Right, that we talked about at the beginning of the...
That is,
was it Hot and Heavy?
Hot and Heavy.
Yeah.
The outrage comes from the fact that they shouldn't even be together. There's a lot of outrage that comes from that.
Right. So are there any positive depictions of an actual fleshed out fat character in science fiction? I mean, I think we started talking about movies and shows, and it just seemed like such a thin... a thin landscape that I think we've had to add.
If we open it up to fantasy, I actually have a series that it would be a little controversial for me to say that I think it has good depictions of fat people, but I think it has good depictions of fat people. And that's Game of Thrones.
Really?
Okay.
The immediate reaction is that I think most people, when they start thinking about Game of Thrones, they think in terms of
gay sex.
Ineffectual fat characters. That's sort of the first thought, because one of the primary protagonists is Samwell Tarly, right? Who his defining characteristic is that he's fat, and the other is that he is a coward, right? So he has a extremely strong negative characteristic right off the bat. But his arc through the series is not to become thin. It is to become, to find his courage and to find how he can fight, how he can contribute to this struggle.
And he doesn't lose weight in that process?
He does not at any point lose weight. He finds a love interest. He becomes an adoptive father. And he grows leaps and bounds. And so immediately that's sort of the one arc. There's another character you see in the first season called Pork Pie, who's this fat bully character that over the course of the series becomes humanized and then drops away. He's a minor character, but when you find him again, he is still fat, but he's also now happy where he works he has nice. A career. He's inventing his own baking creations, which I sympathize with. And there are plenty of examples of that. Even Fat Walda, who's sort of a throwaway character in the series, in the TV series. She only shows up in the series because her husband is told that as a reward, he can have any one of this guy's daughters, and the father will match the weight of the daughter in silver. And so the guy picks the fattest daughter he can find, who's then sort of portrayed as being a little ineffectual, but the only kind person in the entire setting where he exists, right? And in the book series, to top it all off, there is a character that didn't make it into the show called Manderley, Wyman Manderley, who is a northern bannerman who, when everything falls apart and everyone else sort of caves under the weight of all these attacks going up north, he's the only one that's smart enough and uses people's preconceptions of him being a fat person and therefore dumb and slow and weak to his advantage, and manages to sort of maintain a lot of the power of the people of the North through these sort of schemes. And so he is an actual hero.
Yeah, there's something really satisfying about a character being able to use other people's prejudices against them.
I love that. Yes, yeah. I'm so on board with that. And the fact that that all of these characters, and so all of these characters are fat, all of these characters have an arc, all of these characters are flawed, and all of them have been produced by a fat author. Like, I think that's necessary to point out that it took a fat author to actually produce fat characters with humanity to them. So I'm sorry, I'm just blathering like crazy. Like, do you guys have any memories of fat characters in sci-fi that were iconic? I mean, you say fat characters in sci-fi, and like Jabba the Hutt's the first thing that comes to mind.
I think Trevor had more success in maybe some YA stuff, or am I wrong?
Sort of. I wanted to kind of going back to the Trek, in like new Trek, Captain Tilly.
Oh yeah,
from Discovery is so. I immediately fell in love with her. I've mentioned the actress. I think on our Instagram account for when I was doing the Muse Mondays, but such an amazing character, and I would say I like her. She's uncertain of herself, but she's clearly so talented and has so much to offer. And I don't even think it's that people doubt her. I think that she has so much hesitation in herself. And then I
was going to say, at some point you should point out that she's much larger than we would think of as the standard issue crew member on a Star Trek series. She's much bigger than that.
Yeah, she's bigger than a Star Trek crew member, but she's very normal. She's very
No one's
every person today.
She's Hollywood.
She's Hollywood.
She's Midwest then.
Yeah. And we get to see. This is kind of spoiler, but I don't know. The show's been out for a couple years now, so it's spoilers. But whatever. We get to see the mirror. Universe Tilly, who is the most sinister, powerful, sadistic, sexual person in that universe.
And of course, same actor in the same body.
Yes.
Which is really fun to see.
And it's just so interesting seeing the differences in them, but also that the dark sided of if she reached her full potential, she would be this force that could take over the galaxy.
Yeah, exactly.
No. So I was looking into some kind of fat lit stuff because, I was like, okay, well, there's Jabba the Hutt. There's
Pearl.
But I found kind of some discussions about this fat positive representation in sci-fi. And there is a story in an anthology called Dark Matter. And the story is Maggie's, written by Cherie Renee Thomas. And there's a character who is a genetically engineered underwater terraformer who is engineered to have extra fat to be able to kind of sustain themselves in these ultra cold waters. and the main character has a crush on this,
Fat terraformer.
fat terraformer. And then I was curious because I almost feel like, once again, this is more fantasy, and I was curious if anyone had heard of the Forest Mage trilogy by Robin Hobb.
This sounds really interesting when you told me about it.
I haven't heard of this, no.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounded pretty cool.
So the hero in this Forest Mage trilogy is infected with magic, and the magic is stored in his body as fat. So he's kind of recovering. I believe it's from plague, and he starts just rapidly gaining weight despite not eating, or it doesn't make sense that this is happening to him, and he's kind of being shunned by everyone as a result. And then he ends up in a culture where his fat is honored because it's a sign that, he has been gifted with this magic.
Which I think is a really cool concept.
Yeah, definitely. And I also like that it's when we talk about body positivity, what we usually mean is not hating your body, like coming up to some sort of neutrality that isn't self-disgust.
Yeah.
And I just love that this is literally positivity, that no, this is a good thing. Like, look how fat he is. That's a good thing because that means magical power.
Yeah. So, Michael, I mean, you've always been a sci-fi fan. Like, you like speculative fiction. Has any of these characters ever stood out to you growing up, or iconically, or?
No, not really. I mean, I think part of the reason why, I think, as with most chasers, it took a long time to kind of develop fully is because I didn't see these things in the media that I was consuming. So, like, yeah, you talk about Star Wars, and Jabba the Hutt is usually most people's like first, like, really obvious depiction of like a fat evil character. I remember a lot of people talking about how they kind of, it's like that love-hate thing. Like, you love to hate him. Like, you love Jabba the Hutt because he's such a fat slob. And I just never, ever felt that way about it. I never understood. It just felt extremely offensive to me, even as a little kid. So yeah, I don't have any memories really of seeing fat characters represented in a way that I appreciate it. The closest I ever got is the classic. I feel like a lot of chasers my age have this, seeing Luke at the beginning of episode 5 in the Bacta tank, where the curvature of the tank is distorting his like he's in sort of like a small like swimsuit kind of like device where you can see his legs and his body. And it distorts him to look fatter than Mark Hamill actually is. That's about as close as I ever got to seeing a fat hero.
And I should say that growing up as a chaser for me, all the media representations were just a constant reminder that, oh, by the way, what you like is disgusting. That thing that you like, that's disgusting. I can't believe you like something that disgusting. Over and over and over again, you see that in the representations of
and a joke
characters
too,
that we would maybe go for, except, oh, right, I forgot he's evil and terrible.
I mean, the other one for me was like, Star Wars again was a very influential series for me, as with like so many other people, but I don't even remember his name, but the Gungan sort of leader.
Porkins.
Well, Porkins, I suppose, but all he does is die on screen. No, the Gungan leader from Phantom Menace, whose whole purpose is to be sort of like,
oh yeah,
I don't know, like blustering blowhard who shakes his jowls at people.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's his whole. I suppose you could almost say he's an effectual leader, almost, but he also puts Jar Jar in charge of a battalion, so not really.
It is interesting, though, that there is one fat character that, if you'll forgive the expression, gets overshadowed by Jabba in Star Wars.
Yes.
And I just put a link in our chat. This is Yarna Dal Gargan. I did not know her name until I looked this up. But she's a fat dancing girl.
Yeah, this is who I referenced earlier.
Oh,
yeah.
The six-breasted character from Star Wars.
And it's interesting because, like, she is a legit character, and the fact that she is a dancing girl in this thing is setting her up to be like, this is someone that in this context at least is admired, right, for her beauty. And I just thought it was interesting. I just looked up the character, and she has an entire arc beyond that in their, I guess, the old mythology. I don't know if it still exists now that
in
Disney's
the extended
taken over.
Universe.
But she goes on. She has a little adventure where, like, she saves a bunch of her own kids, and it's mentioned here that she is a dancer. She dances at Han Solo and Leia Organa's wedding. as part of the as part of the
Yeah,
entertainment there. So.
let's be clear here, though. That is not how she's represented in the movies. Like in the movies, she's dancing, yes, but she's in like this den of iniquity where Jabba the Hutt is in charge as this like evil slime monster. So I don't know that. Like, I don't know that any part of that is representing her positively. Like, the extended universe was what saved that character in literature. In the movies, like, she's barely on screen for a few seconds.
Well, I don't think her appearing in that nightclub impugns her character. I think that's no different than a lounge. That's no different than a lounge singer like Joan or a comic like Joan Rivers appearing in a nightclub in Las Vegas that's run by the mafia.
Any more observations about fat characters in sci-fi?
We need more of them.
We need more of them.
Yeah,
More
we need
observations.
more. We need some positive ones. Let's get a little more Tilly out there, please.
Speaking of looking for fat representation in sci-fi stuff.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Tell us
Smoothless
more.
transition by me. A little high five for myself. My tip of the week is raising people's awareness of a graphic novel series by a friend of the podcast, Philip Berrigan, and the series is Fat as in 24602. The first part of the graphic novel came out last year, and the part 2 is coming out on September 21st. A little info on this. Fat as in the graphic novel part 1 explores an intolerant world that takes an extremist idea and lets it play out for all to see. 60 years in the future, the diet industry becomes the most powerful branch of the federal government. The rights of the obese are slowly diminished and the rebellion begins. But could you maintain a low body mass index if it was law? What if your life depended on it? Once again, this is by Philip Berrigan, friend of the podcast, his husband, Mason Arrigo, and colored by Chris Link, also friend of the podcast. I remember when Phil was first writing this, so it is a joy to kind of see the journey it's gone on. There's also a novel form of the book, which, once again, I remember reading kind of an advanced copy of it. It is very near and dear to me. The main character, Delilah Palladino, is a force to be reckoned with. It has some Handmaid's Tale vibes, some Judge Dredd vibes. You can get more information on www.fatasin.com or just search Fatasin on Amazon, and you should find all of these lovely things there.
Nice.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for spending more time with the Big Fat Gay Podcast.
I'm
Do we have a bit or not a bit?
We do not have a bit.
No bits.
I overslept.
very well, very well.
That's on me. My bad.
No bits this week. Just the kibbles.
Reminds me of once upon a time, one of my long in New York, I had a boyfriend, big chubby boyfriend, who wanted Charlotte Russe. And so we walked into this bakery and he says, I don't know if you'd have this, but do you have Charlotte Russe? And the woman from Eastern Europe looks right, looks left, looks at her counter and says, no Charlotte Russe.
Okay.
No, Charlotte.
no
It was
bit
like the
for
soup-
you.
It was like the soup Nazi with Charlotte Russe.
Yeah, just no.
No
Denial.
Charlotte Russe.
What is
Get out.
Charlotte Russe?
It's a confection of mystery and delight. You should Google it if you're interested.
Trevor, how fast can you say the social media stuff for a serving of Charlotte Russe?
Okay, well, so the music's going. Okay, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as @BigFatGay. And I just already botched that. No Charlotte Russe for me. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. You can see all the lovely resources we talked about today at www.bigfatgaypod.com. Leave us a 5-star review on Facebook and Apple Podcasts. Stitcher too, maybe. I never can remember.
Really?
Yeah, give us a follow. Give us 5 stars. Give us Charlotte Russe.
In that order.
Maybe you're listening on your console of the spaceship you're in the future, wondering about how the world could be still in pandemic at this point and not have any fat positive
No.
sci-fi representation.
No.
And you just
Too
passed
real.
a big purple planet, and then you look forward and there's an asteroid hurtling toward you. So
Look out! I was not going to miss that one.
Wow. No Charlotte Russe.
he did it this time, folks.